you.
So my leadership journey, as I say, began in District 59, and then I served as the region advisor for Europe, the Middle East and Africa, and then went on to serve on the board of directors as an international director before becoming an international officer and finally international president in 2023-2024. Only the second European, the first from continental Europe, to serve in that office. And I was really thrilled then when I was asked if I would come and share with you at your district officer training today. As I've said, as Marina was said, and as you'll see on the screen, I'm going to talk to you today about leveling up your leadership. I do have some activities for you to do so that you don't just have to listen to me, and hopefully we'll all learn something in this time together. I've spent many years in leadership positions, whether that was in my working life as head of professional development at a large retail pharmacy chain in the UK, or whether it was heading a non-profit organisation or a government board, and on the Toastmasters board also. And there I led a very specific piece of research which looked at leadership roles and the credit that we give for carrying out those roles. Because we know that some of them contribute to us achieving certain awards, like if you are to become a distinguished Toastmaster, you need to have credit for serving in both club and district leadership. And through that research and through my experience, I notice there are three approaches to leadership. You can decide that you're going to occupy the role. You're going to have the title, the shiny badge, the smiles, all the trappings of it. And at the end of the term, you're done. You can alternatively decide that you want to be busy in a role. Do all of the things that make the wheels turn, the administration of the roles, the things that don't get you into any trouble, and just keep it jogging along. Or you can decide that as a leader, you want to make a difference in that role because you see more than just checking the boxes and you see how things could improve. Perhaps right now you're really clear about which kind of leader you are. Maybe not. But whether you're clear or whether you're not, I'm not going to ask you to tell us what kind of leader you are. I'm simply going to ask that you reflect on being all that you can be as a leader. I think there are three key aspects that we need to pay attention to when we are in leadership, particularly in Toastmasters, because those show the world the kind of leader that we are. And the first of those is character. Stephen Covey said that opposition is a natural part of life. Just as we develop our physical muscles through overcoming opposition, such as lifting weights, we develop our character muscles by overcoming challenges and adversity. And leadership certainly provides challenges in many, many ways for us. Even if you do the best you can, challenges will still come. And even though you're only a few months into your term, I am confident that many of you will already have experienced challenges. Those challenges may be personal challenges. For example, fear of failure, a lack of confidence, or the challenge might come in working with other people. You develop that character as you deal with conflicts. Your integrity will always be put to the test, especially when you are tired or stressed. And in modern life, being tired and stressed is very common indeed. For example, when someone offers you an easy option that lacks integrity, it can be very tempting to take it. In leadership, your core values come into focus. We make decisions through the filter of our core values. It can be the chance to discover very clearly what our own personal core values are. As we know in Toastmasters, we have 4 defined core values, but each one of us will have additional personal core values too, I'm sure. When you face challenges, please don't stay stuck. Remember that you're not alone. There's a whole team around you to help you and to support you, to keep going. Think of the members of the District Executive Committee who are with you today. Think of your mentors. Think of your peers who support you. When I was in district leadership, I had a peer mentor, someone who was in exactly the same position as me in another district. And we became great friends. And we used to call each other up. I'm facing this, help. And just sometimes a safe place to vent and just be open without causing any harm to anyone, just to help you regain perspective and come back at whatever the challenge is you're facing. The second thing I think we need to think about is coordinating. In any role, there are things to be done. This is the doing something in your role. So right now, this is where I'm going to ask you for the next 2 minutes, and I'm only going to give you 2 minutes, to share with your neighbour what are the kind of activities that you have to coordinate in your role. So go ahead for the next 2 minutes and I will time it. What are the activities you have to coordinate in your role? Okay, our 2 minutes are over. I don't know if you can hear me.
We are all yours, Morag.
We're all yours. Does anyone want to share with the group the activities you found? Just a couple of people, perhaps.
Yes. Activating people at all levels, even when people are just a member, then when they are not active, nothing happens. And when you raise that to the level of the area and division directors, if you see inactive people try to encourage them to take the next step, even if it's a very small step. Encourage them to start walking, because that magic first step is really important to get active again.
Okay, thank you.
So just to explain, this is Astrid, who is our club retention chair.
Okay.
So you can understand why membership engagement is on her mind.
Absolutely. Anyone else?
Organize a special event and invite all the members, the active, inactive, and the former members. And you wish to have new members back. Okay?
Did you hear that, Morag?
I did hear that. Thank you very much for that.
From Rima, from, well, Division B, I should say.
Okay, thank you.
And Leona and I were discussing about what we have to coordinate as part of the trio.
Yeah.
Dots, contests, pathways, and getting all area directors to create new clubs and retain existing clubs.
Yeah.
And Amol said, yeah, keep the main thing the main thing.
Keeping the main thing, absolutely. And across your team, many activities to coordinate, from engaging people, training, club visits, reporting, planning, success plans, all of those things, contests, meetings, you name it. It's a busy time. And coordination skills are important to ensure that you do the things that matter and that you do keep the main thing, and you don't get busy being busy. You get busy doing the things that need to be done and the things that make a difference. As well as coordination, we have communication. Communication as a leader, when, how, what do we communicate as a leader? Sometimes that's a huge challenge, isn't it? Knowing where people will be to receive our message, the mood that they'll be in, the way they want to receive it, and so on. And I am sure that you have experienced many different kinds of communication from leaders. And some of that communication will have been effective, and some of it perhaps less effective, or even just downright ineffective. And I wonder if anyone in the group would like to share with us an example of a communication that you have experienced from a leader that you felt was particularly effective.
Okay, so yesterday I was working on presenting some numbers to my CFO, and we work very closely together, so he's just a colleague. And he had a base report which consisted of an Excel with a few different columns, and he asked me, it was about the audit fee, and he asked me, okay, show the audit proposal by the auditors and show the new fee that we propose. So I just call next to it, and then I handed over to him. And he said, oh, what am I looking at? This is awful, this is awful. He really says stuff like that. And then he said, okay, you know, it should look very nice, it should look very presentable. And then he took a blank sheet of paper and he drew point A and point B. And then he said, what you want to do, you want to go like this, in a straight line. This is very efficient, but it's not effective. And then he said, what you should do is go like this. So make sure to maybe spend even 1 hour on a report like this, which seems like an exorbitant amount of time to do it. But he said, this is going to me, the CFOs, and then it's going to the partners. And then the message gets across. So then it's maybe no longer efficient for me to make it, but it will be effective. So he showed me how to do this by this simple strikes on paper.
So instead of a direct line, an arch.
Yeah, I got that. Thank you. Anyone else got an example of communication you've experienced from leaders that was perhaps ineffective?
Ishan speaking for Area Director D3. We experienced today rich content that was transmitted through different channels or different purposes. So for me, the communication needs to be for a purpose. We started with a typical statement, mission statement of district, that was create new clubs and support the existing ones. For example, this is a communication for guidance and give a business direction. But also communicating how to find a common agreement. So what we have done today, through that exercise that Brian suggested, to find problem solving for a specific purpose. We had also other type of communication to convince. While doing that exercise, we are trying to persuade and convince this is the best idea, we should go with the team together. So just today we had many types of communication purposes. Just to share.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Do we have someone else that would like to share some kind of communication that you received from leaders that was either effective or ineffective?
Laurent Bonnard from, I'm area director from S3. In past, I used to, when I thought that it was a solution, to explain more about people, about my view of doing things. And it was very ineffective. The more I explained, more I lost people and I bring people against me. And now I change my approach. Instead of explaining things, I invite people to take, maybe if they're willing to take another turn and try something new. And last time, when I went to my wife to dinner, I used to, in a restaurant, to move furniture, not my place, but I invite the waitress to move some chair to help her to have a better way of serve people. And she's really happy to move the chair.
Thank you very much. As leaders in Toastmasters, we have a very distinct advantage over many other leaders out there because we have been spending time learning to communicate. We've spent time delivering speeches, and think of all that you have already learned. Think of all you've learned about how to deliver a speech, about purpose, speaking with purpose, a speech structure, knowing your audience, persuasion skills. Think of those special occasion speeches, what you learned in those. If you had to go and recognize someone who's just achieved their DTM on a visit to a club, for example, you can take all of the learnings that you've had so far and develop them while you're serving in your role. Just because you're in leadership doesn't mean that you give up on your own development. It doesn't mean that we get to forget all that we've learned. We have to keep moving forward, even if it's slowly. So even when I was international president, I still gave speeches. I still attended meetings and took meeting roles, perhaps not at the same frequency as I did when I wasn't in leadership. So don't forget about yourself. Don't get lost in all of this. Keep evolving your communication skills to enhance them in leadership, because it does make a difference when we can find that way to communicate that really works. And you know, it's like being in the gym. It's a workout for your communication skills for later as you practice all the different aspects of that in leadership. Hopefully your character remains the same and how you coordinate and communicate will change as you raise your leadership to a higher level. I like to think of 3 levels of leadership, and they are these: me, we, and us. Me leadership is all about me. I am the focus of my leadership. A me leader, I want this. I think that. I'm doing this. A we leadership is all about we, the team. And that team could be your area council, it could be your division council, whatever team you define that you are part of. And it is as part of this team, I've learned how to, we think, we will do those kind of things that we would express our leadership in. And then finally, us leadership. It's all about us, just in case you thought that was the US. It's not, it's us. And what I mean by us leadership is the whole ecosystem. So that you, the team that you are leading, plus the community that your team is serving. That's when we get that whole us leadership coming together. I have another activity for you, and this involves 2 parts to it. One of them is to do something by yourself, and the second then is to speak with your neighbour about what you've done for yourself. I'd like you to think about 3 leadership decisions you've made since you started your term in your current office in Toastmasters. And think about those decisions. And think about whether you were motivated for yourself. So how did this serve me? Was it about my reputation that I made that decision, or about keeping control of something, about gaining recognition, for example? Or was my motivation we, the team? How did this serve the team? How did it serve Toastmasters? How did it serve the district mission? So I'd like you just to take, I'm going to give you a total of 3 minutes to just think about 3 decisions. Think about whether your motivations, or which motivations you had that were I motives and which that were we. And then spend a moment with your neighbour reflecting to see, are there any patterns in the decisions that you've been making? And we have 3 minutes for that. And don't worry, I won't ask you to share publicly in the whole group afterwards. Your 3 minutes begin now.
We like talking, Morag. We are back with Morag, ladies and gentlemen.
Welcome back. Thank you, everyone. I'm hoping that you've had some insights or some thoughts around whether you're seeing more of a me focus or a we focus in what you're doing. I'm going to just look at, like everything, every style of leadership has its pros and its cons, and just walking through some of those now. Let's think about me leadership to start with, the pros. When we think about leadership, the first thing is it all starts with vision. Without vision, people perish. So we need to have vision in leadership. And in me leadership, it's easy because it's all about how I see the way forward. So for me, that's easy. I don't have to ask anyone. I don't have to consult with anyone. It is my vision. I get to see what it is. And that's beautiful when it then comes to things like decision making and direction setting, because I can give quick decisions in response to something. I can set a single strong direction if my vision is clear and I know what I'm doing. Of course, I can set people off in multiple directions if I am limited in my skills in that area. So there's a little bit of a risk there, but from a leader perspective, it's definitely a pro that I don't have to ask anyone, what shall we do? I just go and do it. And motivation. For you, the leader, if you're a me leader, that's inspiring. But for the people you lead, initially that can be really inspiring, especially if you're a captivating speaker and you have this clear vision that you can articulate. You can set the direction. They ask a question, you'll make a decision, they get an answer, and there's no explanation required on your part. That can be really motivating for people initially. That wears off a bit because it's not so interesting for people once it's all set in place, especially if they are not involved in molding or shaping or influencing by providing feedback. It's at its most beneficial in emergencies when you don't have to consult anyone else about anything if an emergency arises and you can just go for it. In terms of the cons, of course, morale. As I said, people might be very motivated in the beginning, but eventually they can feel quite unappreciated because they can't share their skills or ideas. You don't provide a path for them to do that, a way for them to bring something back to you, to make the most of people. And in terms of creativity, even if you are a very creative individual yourself, it's still just one point of view. It's very limiting. I remember way back when I was Vice President of Education of my home club. And in those days, and this is a really long time ago now, in those days, you got your DCP report every quarter and it came in the mail to the President and the Vice President Education. It was February and I got the DCP report in the mail. And it told me that my club had 17 members and we had 5 DCP points. And I thought, 5 DCP points. Okay, we'll be fine by the end of the year. But with 17 members, I then realized that we would get nothing in the Distinguished Club program if we didn't sort out the membership situation. If I'd been into me leadership, I could have gone and just said, this is what we're doing. And this is how we'll solve the problem. But I didn't. I took it to the team and I said, okay, we have this problem. How are we going to solve it? And the officers at the time came together and they worked out this idea that we would host a barbecue eventually. And the purpose of the barbecue would be to celebrate our club and to welcome all the new members that we were going to see in the club between that time in February and the end of the programme year. We'd have a competition that the men in the club were against the women in the club, and whoever brought the most new members in, they got to be the guests at the barbecue. And if whoever didn't bring the most members in, they would have to organise the barbecue, cook the food, do everything, clear up and so on. And so the men of our club did all of that because the women brought in more new members in that period. And that was the beginning of something really interesting. The club is now 19 years old. It has been President's Distinguished every single year. And it has an annual barbecue to celebrate the club that came from that problem in membership numbers way back when the club was only 2 years old. I would never have had in mind that that was a way to solve that problem back then. And I just marvel that by bringing the problem together, we were able to draw on greater creativity of people that established something that has been really long lasting and valuable over time. One of the other cons of me leadership is it depends on one leader. So what happens if you get sick? When I was international president-elect, as many of you will know, I received a cancer diagnosis. If I had been a me kind of leader, I'm not quite sure what we would have done in the organisation when I began my term as president and was still undergoing treatment and not able to be there in the middle of absolutely everything. We've always got to think that it can't depend on just one person. And you're also likely to get a higher turnover, because if people are not feeling so engaged or belonging or able to contribute, then why stay? They may just not leave Toastmasters, but leave your team in some way. When you move to the next level, going from me leadership, you take on one more skill, and that is collaboration. Collaboration is added to those key things a leader needs to do to succeed. So now you're working with the team. It's not just your ideas. You need to find a way forward that takes account of others. They participate in the decision making, the direction setting, all of the other things that you're going to do. So we have to learn those skills of good collaboration, of working together in a positive way to make it all possible. And then in we leadership, we recognise that we're part of a team as well as being the leader of that team. Morale and trust can grow in that situation when people feel valued and they feel involved, when you ask their opinion, when they think they know what's going on. They're much more likely to trust you and see more value in you as a leader. You've got different ideas that are coming from different backgrounds, different perspectives. You're able to develop a team, not just a collection of people, but people who engage regularly to generate ideas, to make decisions, to grow together, if you bring them together. Just asking people individually doesn't usually work. In one of my leadership terms in Toastmasters, and I'm not going to tell you which one in case you can work out who the leader was, but that particular leader decided they wouldn't bring the team together to discuss anything. They would consult, but they would consult with us individually, going round the houses if they wanted an opinion from someone. So none of us knew what each other thought. And there was this sense of, I described it as feeling like I spent the year in a cupboard, being brought out when my opinion was required and put back in when it was no longer required. You miss out on so much of the benefit of developing as a team if you engage in that kind of approach to we leadership of, I'll ask you only when I want, rather than allowing people to find their own voice and have their own voice at the table. So if you are an area director, how are you working with your area councils, with your leaders in each of your clubs? Are you allowing them to influence the decisions that you're making? Are you allowing them to grow with you? Because that's going to help them and help you find your successor. Are you just keeping them at arm's length? Are you actually engaging them as a team? Also, we leadership brings greater stability because it doesn't just depend on one person. And you are building those leaders for the future who can take over from you. And there is great comfort when you know who is coming next and you can plan proper handover and really help people grow into a role rather than jump into a role. Cons exist, of course. It takes more time to make decisions because you have to consult, share ideas, evaluate the ideas, and then finally decide what's going to happen. And shock horror news, as the leader, you may not get your own way. There are many times when I've been leading teams, I've brought an idea, but a better idea emerged from the group. And we had to do it differently to the way I thought we should. And in the end, it almost always worked out for the best. It takes longer to complete, because you may have lots of options to think about, people to ask, finding time to have the discussion, finding just how to approach it all. So this is a chance for you to develop decision-making tools, to agree what the boundaries are. Are we going to limit the time in which we will discuss this? How are we going to get there so that everyone is clear on the rules and you don't get swamped by the things that are happening? You're not overwhelmed by ideas. I once served on a club officer team where the president was very easily overwhelmed by ideas. His name was Michael. And I can remember we came one evening and someone said, oh, we have to talk about our Christmas event. Yeah, let's talk about ideas for the Christmas event. And people had lots of ideas and they were coming thick and fast. And poor Michael, the president, is like, we need to put this on the agenda for the next meeting, because he just couldn't cope when there were a ton of ideas there. He needed time for reflection. He needed time to work it out and then have the discussion to evaluate. So we had to find a way to do that because it wasn't automatically there for us. Team pride can be a problem. And you might think, it sounds good to have pride in your team, and it is good to have a pride in your team. But the challenge comes when, in a district, for example, you're operating in multiple teams. If you think of all of the area teams, all of the division teams, if the pride in your team is greater than your pride in the organisation, then it might mean that you won't help another team that needs help. And that's no good for anyone. And it's certainly not in the spirit of the organisation or in alignment with our core values. And of course, one of the cons, emergencies. When an emergency arises, you don't have to wait to then discuss things if you can just go ahead by yourself. When we move up another level, we get to the final factor that I would say we add in of contributing. We now add contribution as the key factor to success. How will you contribute to the bigger organisation? And part of that is your contribution in DEC meetings. It's not just showing up and voting when you're asked, but it's about sharing your opinions. It's about sharing your insights, bringing, this is what I observe on the ground in my place, and actually showing concern for the wider organisation, for the bigger picture, and adding in, bringing all that you have. I can do that. Sometimes it means raising what our current Toastmasters president calls the helium hand. When volunteers are being looked for, before you know it, your hand is up in the air. You shouldn't never volunteer foolishly, but if you can do, what can you bring and add to the value of the team? Getting to the us level of leadership is where we have the greatest impact. That doesn't mean that you bring the whole community together to the table for every single decision, but it does mean that you take the community into account. So you're not doing it to them, but you're doing it with them. A few years ago in District 95, we had a situation in my home division, which is Division D. The alignment chair was from one part of the alignment representative from the division was from one part of the division, not our part, in the areas where we were. And the alignment report was late, so no one had actually seen it before the district council meeting. And we only found out on the eve of the district council meeting what the alignment looked like. And it made significant changes to the area. And where the area was that I'm in was 200 kilometres away from the next area. And to make those changes just seemed ridiculous. It was disadvantaging everyone. But no one had consulted with any of the club presidents. Even the area director hadn't been consulted. So you can imagine the outcry that came at that, the suspicion that then followed for any alignment report coming in the next couple of years, where people are like, I don't trust you, no, this isn't right. We had someone who was trying to solve a problem that focused on a very small local issue and didn't look at the bigger picture. Another example came during the pandemic when we had area conferences weekend after weekend. I think in our division we had 3 consecutive weekends where each Saturday was a minimum of 8 hours on Zoom. We didn't just have contests, we had educationals added in. And then on the final Saturday came the division conference, which including contests and educationals was a whole 10 hours on Zoom. And of course, the same people were being asked again and again and again to be judges, to fill other roles, and of course, all the whole educational program to be Zoom masters and to the point of exhaustion. And I asked the division director, why did you decide to do this? And they said, because this was most convenient for the area directors. What about the members? Well, I have to keep my area directors happy. And that's a great example of we thinking and not us thinking. It made sense for the area directors, but it didn't make sense for the club members or the club officers. If they had consulted with the club presidents first, I think we might have done something a little different. So bringing people into the decision and doing things with them is a great way to get that buy-in and to get that us leadership going. Sorry, yeah. With us leadership, we're looking at stronger outcomes. People understand more and there's more buy-in for them. They'll help you find shared solutions. And you'll build trust because you'll have greater transparency when people know what's going on. When people feel empowered, they're happy to give you feedback before everything is final. So sometimes that protects us from ourselves when we can do that. And people are more likely to share their talents. And when we feel like we belong, it shows more respect in the system. Of course, decision-making can be more complex, take longer. Communication, there needs to be much, much more in way of styles of communication, of approaches and who's involved and when you do it. But those can all be worked out. It does take more effort. But when you engage the community, that's when you have the greatest impact. If you want to grow your influence, your ability, and to increase your success as a leader, you do need to keep moving up a level. And how do we make that transition? Well, it's a step-by-step process. Start by identifying your passion. What is your why? My greatest why is seeing people develop. I love that. So that drives so many of the things that are about why I want to move to the next level. Get feedback on where you are now, on how you're doing. You got a little bit of that in your discussion earlier about, am I making I decisions or we decisions? And think about what is working well for you. Look for the opportunities to expand your circle. That's always going to take you to the next level. If you don't have a mentor, work with one, find one. It could be a peer mentor, or it could be someone who is external to your current grouping there. And ultimately, you can choose to be a leader who holds your role for the year and walks away, or you can choose to be a leader who does exactly the tasks listed, or you can choose to be a leader who engages their team and the whole community that you serve. And you can have an impact that lasts and leaves a legacy. That choice is yours. Ultimately, it's yours. Marina, back to you. I think that's all I was going to share today.
Laura, we have 2 hats in the room because our theme was Halloween. So we take them both off. Thank you very much for this. Any follow-up from you guys? Any questions, Morag?
What are those nice Toastmaster awards behind here?
Aha. The
Can you
Toastmasters.
more camera to the awards?
Yes, move the camera to the awards, perhaps. I don't know.
The 3 awards you can see behind me are the awards that I got when I was district director. One is the President's Distinguished Award, which was the highest level. And as I say, when I was district director, we were #1 in the world, District 59. And the other 2, one is the President's Extension Award. We were #3 in the world for net club growth. And the other is the President's 20+ Award. We were #1 in the world for having the highest percentage of clubs with 20 or more members. So very proud history in District 59. And underneath them are teddy bears from conventions, Toastmasters conventions.
And I have a question for you, Morag. Will you be in Mass with us 15, 17 May next year?
I have no idea.
Please put it in your calendar as an option. We will be waiting with open arms and with the present that we would have given you in person today.
Thank you. I would love to have been with you in person, but I have an engagement this evening that means I have to stay here.
We know, we appreciate it. We want work-life balance and Toastmasters life balance. And also we want you to be healthy and happy and with us forever.
Thank you very much. I wish you a wonderful rest of your weekend.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Hi, so follow.
There was Peter in the waiting room.
There was Peter in the waiting room.
Yeah, for
Too late.
setting.
Yes.